said, battery died on us, so we're coming back at a little bit of a cut here. But it was funny that you said that because I've been hearing a lot about this whole cancel culture, kind of thing, and honestly, I really don't dive into it too much, to be honest with you, because it's one of those things. It's like, I guess you have to always control your threshold in terms of what you allow in.
Right.
And for me, I was like, that just doesn't really seem like something that I necessarily wanted to let in per se.
Sure.
Just because it just seems so, what's the right way to describe it, almost childish in a way.
It can be.
Because it seems like in certain aspects, right?
Sure.
Not in everything, because there's some things like the example you had given. That's a great example of quote unquote cancel culture or taking a stand for the right thing.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to call it. But yeah, it just seemed kind of interesting to me because it seems like it's playing by extremes again in a sense, it seems. Because like you had said prior, it's one of those things, you're going to fall on one side of the aisle or another. A lot of times people will. And especially with this whole social media generation that we have now. So it's like, I feel like this cancel culture concept is like, if one person doesn't believe in what you have done or doesn't find truth in what you did, oh, we're going to cancel you now. Mm-hmm. So it's like, this is a very slippery slope.
It is. Yeah, it can be difficult. People can tend to take it, like I said, take it too far. People can tend to nitpick. People can tend to do things like that. For example, like I was saying earlier before the battery died, one of our representatives, Brian Mast, he's a Republican in Congress. In 2009, he made a Facebook comment, pretty deplorable, kind of making light of kind of a similar thing to the Smash community. Underage, one of his friends was going to a different country, and he said, "Oh, you should find a girl who's 16. She's it's legal there," or something like that. And people found it this year, 2020, from 2009. The debate can be made, so long ago. He's got to be different. He's got to be a different person now. But he was an adult when he made that comment. It's not acceptable, obviously. So it's like, not everything's black and white. Where do you draw that line of where do you cancel and where do you say you made a mistake, you have to apologize for it, and let's move on?
Right.
That line is drawn by public opinion. People make that decision, not him. People make that decision. So if he makes a mistake, if any one of us make a mistake, and it's not something where an organization is going to tell you can't be a part of this, or they're going to fire you or something along those lines. It's up to public opinion. They have to make up their mind. Are you okay to stay or are you not? And it's probably not fair in a lot of cases because, again, you have some of these people. Camila Cabello went through it. She was on Tumblr way back in the day. I think she was like 15, 16. She posted some racially insensitive memes. And people found them from 2012. She was a minor at the time, so her obviously brain development, all that kind of stuff, and getting the education, the whole thing, they're not fully there yet. And obviously you can make the argument that she's no longer that person anymore. People tried to cancel her. Didn't work. She's still around, she's still doing things, she's still making music, she's still dating Shawn Mendes, I hope, God bless. But sometimes cancel culture has gone for Justin Bieber so many times with his DUIs, and they wanted to cancel him over the dreadlocks he had because it was cultural appropriation or something along those lines. People try to cancel James Charles on YouTube for some of the things that he said and done, and all that kind of stuff. So it is a very slippery slope, and there is no handbook for it. It just really depends on, again, public opinion. What are people saying? What are people doing? Will people still follow you? Will people still talk to you? What's your mental toughness? Are you willing to stand up and say, I made a mistake, it's not something that's going to define me, I'm going to keep going? Or is it going to be something where you're like, I should probably step back, I can't handle this, people are sending me death threats, I don't want to take this anymore. It depends on the person, it depends on the action. It is a very slippery slope.
And that was kind of one of my bigger takeaways from the whole thing, from the very small sample size that I've seen thus far. Mm-hmm. It's what you had just said, you hit the nail right on the head. It's very odd because there's, like you had said, there's no handbook for it. There's no rules or regulations behind it. So it's like, you may do something that is completely okay, but just because somebody doesn't like it, they can try to cancel you. It's like,
Yep.
at what point is this going to get washed out? Like, at what point is it like too much?
Sometimes people will try to cancel, like, if a popular pop star comes out and says, I'm a Christian, they'll try and cancel you for it.
Right.
Because they'll do the thing where they automatically, just like we were talking about earlier, they'll assume your stance and beliefs on things, and they'll immediately say you're irredeemable as a human being, goodbye. So it's like, where do you draw the line? Where do you stop telling people how to live their lives? And where do you just throw your hands up and say, I may not agree with what you believe, I may not agree with your content and your stance, I'm going to unsubscribe / unlike / unfollow and leave you be, instead of dig for dirt on you and try and basically blackmail you off of a platform.
And that's how I feel it is, really. I feel like that's how the device is being used now.
Yeah.
It's being used as a form of blackmail. It's being used as a form of trying to almost incriminate somebody for something they had done in their past. You know, everybody has done things. You could look back at anybody growing up, and there would be something that they might not have liked that they had done.
That's untasteful.
You know, to what degree, it varies.
Sure.
Like, obviously, and a lot of those examples you gave were good examples. You know, because they're very potent and powerful, especially in today's society.
Exactly.
But my point is this: you can't take something from a completely different time, a completely different generation, and morph it into something that's relatable today. It doesn't work like that, because at that time, that wasn't where we were at as a country, as a community, as an individual.
Let's take, for example, the Washington football team, which are now known, what they are now known as, which they were formerly known as the Washington Redskins.
Right.
I've had many conversations with people about this. They say that the logo was created in the 70s by a Native American man who was a part of the organization, and they wanted to honor the heritage, but the name's been around since the 30s and all that kind of stuff. So they think that because of tradition and culture, it should be left allowed and all that kind of stuff. And this is where people come in and they say, it doesn't really matter what the intentions were in the beginning, or what the who created the logo, or what it was. We're not in the 70s anymore. We're not in 1932 when the team was founded, I believe. Don't fact check me. But we're not in that year anymore.
Right.
We are in the year 2020. Identifying somebody based on the color of their skin and using them as a team mascot, hot take, is not appropriate. You can shoot me down, you can tell me I'm a snowflake, I've had people do it already.
I saw that on, was it on Instagram?
Yeah.
People were coming at you, man.
Yes. And I believe firmly that it's not something that's appropriate. And a vast majority of the National Football League, as well as the Native American community who came together and made a petition for it, I believe, a lot of organizations came on board and said, we don't want this in the world. I agree. And they say it's not appropriate anymore. But like we were saying earlier, there are people who don't want to grow and change. And this is where you meet the head of cancel culture and you're a snowflake, stop being offended by everything. There is a balance. But a lot of it comes down to your intentions. Like I was telling you about Brian Mast, he is a Republican. What political party do you think were the first people to say you should step down and resign? It's gonna be the Democratic Party.
Right.
There are things that happen the other way around, where a Democrat does something and Republicans come on and say, well, you shouldn't be doing this, and then you should resign. Because people will use cancel culture not because they believe something is right or wrong, but to fill an agenda.
Mm.
So at the end of the day, if you are trying to say, we don't want this in our community anymore, there were a lot of people that I saw, especially in that Smash community that I was telling you about earlier, where they were huge fans, me included, huge fans of the people that made those offenses. And those people were even saying, we loved your content. We never knew you as a person. Fair. We don't know your content creators. Don't get too attached. And they were able to say, despite how much I liked you, what you did was not okay, and we don't want you a part of this community anymore. Live your life, but we don't want you a part of this community anymore. That's something that's out of, we actually care about the substance of what you did. It was wrong. We don't agree with it. It's the same thing with the Washington football team, in a sense, where you don't have to be, you can recognize that it's not right. You can recognize what's not right is not right. That's not right. Doesn't matter about the history, doesn't matter about any of that. It's not right. So there really is no agenda there. You're not trying to take somebody down because you don't see a bunch of Cowboys, Giants, and Eagles fans trying to end the Washington Redskins organization because they're rivals. It's not because of that. It's because of the need for human beings to want to do the right thing and to recognize the right thing. Where you start getting toxic and dangerous is when you have people who are rivals. I know you probably won't know any of these people. You have James Charles and Tati. They are makeup YouTubers. Megan used to watch them. That's my wife.
James Charles.
He has
that sounds very familiar.
He's a big face. They made some offenses on each other. Said some mean things. Allegedly did some not cool things. Nothing illegal. People wanted to cancel James Charles because they love Tati so much. It's the same thing. People want to cancel Brian Mast because they love the Democratic Party so much. Now, I don't blame people for saying, I just don't like what you did. If that's your reason, I'm all for it. If you don't like what he did and you don't want him representing your district, all power to you. But if you're only doing it because you're like, well, he's a Republican, I want a Democrat in Congress, you got to think about your intentions.
Right. And I think my biggest takeaway from what you had said right there, obviously all of that was good, but the word that kept coming up in my mind was maturity.
Sure.
Right? Because with that vehicle, with the ability, the power that a seemingly regular individual has, is that they have to handle that with maturity. And we probably won't go into this, but you could talk, you could turn that into the whole police debate.
Sure.
Not every police officer is a bad police officer, but they do have an incredible amount of power, and you have to handle it with maturity. You have to handle it with the respect that it deserves.
Absolutely.
And what makes me nervous about this whole cancel culture is that, I think part of the American way is the second chance. Give somebody a second chance. Okay, so you're going to cancel somebody because something they said 12 years ago. What about that second chance, though?
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways, and then you start to think, well, there's some hypocrisy in this whole cancel culture thing, because you're ready to chastise somebody over a mistake that they had made, and regardless of the offense, we'll keep it general for this one. Regardless of the offense, they made a mistake 12 years ago, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
But where's their second chance? You're willing to give people that are incriminated who come out of jail a second chance. Now, where's the line drawn with that? Because you can oftentimes pair those two into a similar category.
And here's where I play devil's advocate.
And I love
what does it mean to give somebody a second chance?
Well, exactly.
Does it mean that they get to keep the position that they've had, but also be able to exist as a human being and be able to do other things and be able to be a person? Or does it mean that they get to keep their position and get to keep their thing of power and say, Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, came up that he had blackface on during a play in 1970 something. Blackface wasn't that, it probably was, but it wasn't as hotly debated as it is now. I'm sure there were people who saw it as wrong, but it wasn't as culturally inappropriate as it is right now.
Sure.
So, does he have to resign as Prime Minister? Does he get to stay in the country of Canada? Does he have to go to prison? Does he get to live his life? Does he have to go get a desk job somewhere? Where is that line? What do you do? And that's where it comes down to there is no handbook. Most people would say, this is the worst this time my time on Earth has ever been. Is it because of COVID? Maybe. If you take out COVID out of the equation, people probably would have said the same thing last year. it's not because the bad people are more prevalent. They just have a louder voice. The internet is such a loud microphone. Really, it is. Where you have some of these people who have these racist, bigoted ideals. They spread it all over Instagram comment sections, and it makes you lose your hope in humanity. But at the end of the day, the people who are willing to do that are going to be the loudest. The people who are like us, I want to say, who are empathetic and love people and want to see people succeed, even those who make mistakes, are not the loudest people. And it's not because we don't want to be loud. It's because the people who have the terrible things to say want to be louder. They scream at the top of their lungs the wrong thing that they think is right. So when people say the world is going to hell in a handbasket, I'm less inclined to think that more people are bad than that the bad people just have a louder voice. And then that's where cancel culture comes in. Those people who are unempathetic and those people who are unwilling to forgive and unwilling to say, I know you're human and I know you make mistakes, are not as loud as the people who are saying, go kill yourself. You know what I mean? It really is. It's difficult to be a positive person in this world because of the loud voice of those few people who are not pleasant people.
And that's the thing too. I think it's partially human nature as well. Human nature for the people that aren't, trained or necessarily equipped to diffuse the negativity that's around them, who don't understand the power and the discipline it takes to control your ear channel, control your eye channel. What you let into your body is what you're going to portray out. And I think a lot of those people that are extremely negative, that do have those kinds of viewpoints, are the ones that allow a lot of negativity into their life. What you fill yourself up with is what you're going to pour out. What you're going to pour out.
You need to find stuff that challenges your perspective, but also is not so extreme that it stresses you out. You are in charge of surrounding yourself with those things. You can't wait for the world to change. The people who think that come November, when the election happens, that if someone's voted in differently, that things is just going to change immediately, you got another thing coming.
Yeah.
It is not a one-person thing, it's a culture thing. And at the end of the day, that culture is going to exist. And it's gonna be a thing that you or anyone, regardless of what side you fall on, are gonna have to struggle with. You're gonna have to decide, or you're going to have to surround yourself with the things that will challenge you, but also inform you, and also not go too extreme. Republicans watch Fox News. Democrats watch CNBC. They watch what fuels their narrative. It's very difficult to find a middle ground for news. It's very difficult. Someone has an opinion, and you're going to hear it in the news. That's why I typically like to read my news. Because I don't want to hear someone's voice inflections. I want to hear what happened, and I want to make my own decision.
I like that. It's good.
And then once you hear and you make your own decision, then that's when you can start hearing different viewpoints. But when you hear a news story on the first go with an opinion spin to it,
that's dangerous.
It is dangerous. It is very dangerous, and that's where we get this divisiveness. People don't actually believe what they're saying. They're regurgitating what they're saying because they heard somebody else say it. And they're told in their brain, that's what I'm told to believe. This is what I'm supposed to believe, so I'm going to believe it, and then that's that. Free thought, what is it? I don't know. It's so difficult to find somebody who is... And I really hope that anyone that's watching this can sit back and say, either I do try to educate myself well, or I'm going to try and educate myself well. I don't want to tell you what to educate yourself on or which source to use to educate yourself. But I think it is important to educate yourself on the facts.
That's it.
And what is factually apparent. And then you make your own decision.
That's it.
And even if you do make your own decision at that point, don't be afraid to learn more and change that decision.
Yes.
You and I, we'll say it again, we weren't perfect.
Still aren't.
Still are not.
Never will be either,
Nope.
by the way.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
But like we believed something that we don't believe now. Because we learned more and we educated ourselves and we were able to listen and say, I was wrong. People who raise their hand and say they're wrong now are considered weak and are considered traitors. Traitors! I didn't know that opinions had sides like that where they were nations that you could be traitors for. Come on. Let's focus on the greater good of humanity and the people that are in there and show love and compassion where it is required and sternness and embracement where it's necessary. Where people may disagree with you, still hug my people.
That's it. You can still love somebody even though you don't agree with them.
I can say, you know what, I don't agree with you, you don't agree with me, but that's okay. But people can't just agree and disagree anymore. It gets to name calling, it gets to this, that, and the other thing, and then you start getting called a snowflake, and some people call other people white supremacists and racist. It's just like, what are you gonna do? You gotta pick and choose your battles. You gotta pick what's important. I had someone tell me the other day, they were like, you're never gonna win a battle on social media. It's not gonna happen.
Nope, never.
You're never gonna change somebody's mind over text. You might not change somebody's mind at all. But planting seeds of fact and knowledge can get someone to at least consider that their viewpoint may not be the only one.
And that's it right there. Facts, education, and continuing to grow your expanse of knowledge. You know, I think, like you had said, I didn't know that opinions could have sides. I didn't know that we could disagree with something, you know, and that would be the end of our friendship. I didn't know that was a thing.
Right.
But it is now. And, you know, although it's going to be an uphill battle, I'm excited because what this time is doing is it's putting the pressure on people like us to continue to be us and to continue to be the beacon, to be an example, to be something that somebody can look up to.
And like we were talking about earlier, it's the same thing with everything else as it is with faith. You cannot beat it into somebody. You can't hit them over the head with it. Just be someone that's caring and loving and kind. People will see that, and then people will ask why. And you tell them why. And once you tell them why, they will listen.
And that's it. And, you know, being a human being.
That's it. Just be a person. Don't be a caricature. Don't be somebody that you feel like you have to be.
Be you.
Be yourself.
Be a human being.
That's it.
You know, that's what's, you know, the more I talk about it, the more I'm starting to realize, you know, that whole, you know, just that aspect of humanity, of just being a human being, you know, it's such a lost art. The fact that being a human has to be defined now with a dictionary is odd to me. Because it's never something that I had to think about.
Yeah.
You know, it's never something that was in question for me. But I'm ready to take the challenge, you know, to show people what it's like to be a human being.
When I learned this through my education, about education, for being a teacher, children are inherently themselves until they are shown that being themselves is not enough. We are no different. If we are not being ourselves or we're trying to be somebody else, it's because at some point someone looked at us and said, who you are isn't enough. And you need to know that's not true. You are enough. You matter. and you are a puzzle piece, and you can fit nowhere else than where you fit. Where you fit can change throughout the course of your life. Your shape will move, but nobody else can fill the space but you. And that's important. You need to know that. No matter who you are, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, boy, girl, man, woman, child, adult, elderly. And that's what I love about this channel, is you've brought every type of human being I could think of. I'm not kidding. Every type of human you can think of is in 5 episodes of this channel. Who else can say that? And that's why I love what you're doing, and I know this isn't the last episode, we're going to have another one after this, but I gotta just say I love what you're doing, and I love that you are willing to bring people from all walks of life to talk about their experiences and to talk about what it means to be a human being. That's really what it's about.
Appreciate that, Andrew. And the thing about it is I didn't even really realize I was doing it at the time, until, as of recent and hearing somebody like yourself, kind of say it for me, is that, I think one of the things that this channel is hopefully going to do for people is show people it's okay to be human, and it's okay to, being a human takes many different forms, takes many different shapes, and everybody can be their own human. We can still all come together and fight for something together. We can all still look different, act different, speak different, but we can still be the same inside. You know what I'm saying? And I appreciate those words. And on that note, this is gonna be the end of part 3 of episode 5 with my man Andrew. Guys, I really hope everybody's tuning in and watching this. And let me challenge you guys, everybody who watches this, what do you guys think about this whole cancel culture concept? Do you guys think it's playing by extremes? Do you guys think it's progressive? Where do you envision that going? And what are your viewpoints on it? Let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And then that is going to be the end of the serious part of episode 5. See a couple boxes in a little circle. So over here, this is going to be a playlist with a whole bunch of other videos that I posted. If you like what you saw so far from the sit down, you'll be able to keep up with everything right there. Right here is going to be the video to my previous video. And then right here, click that circle there. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that bell icon to make sure you get all the updates whenever I come out with some new content. I appreciate the support. Let's keep the train going. Here we go.